Tonight, as the Trump administration works to roll back transgender protections, we're going to show you why this is a population who needs help from the government more than any to be kept safe, and also safe from discrimination. Then Election Day, believe it or not, it's just 2 weeks away. We're going to give you a snapshot of where we stand as we head into those crucial home stretch. Also, the case of Jamal Khashoggi. The Saudis, they finally admitted he is dead, but their story just keeps on changing, and so does Donald Trump's. We have the very latest. Evening, everyone, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Hope you had a great weekend, and thank you for joining us tonight. And we begin this evening with the Trump administration getting ready to roll back protections. That for a group of people who really need protecting. I'm talking about transgender Americans. Now, I'm not talking about just a handful of people. There are likely 1.5 million of them living in our country. The Times reporting that Health and Human Services wants to establish a legal definition of gender that classifies people based upon what their birth certificate says. That means people who have had sex change operations or identify as a different sex will be forced to identify as the gender that they don't want to be associated with. And that it would strip away civil rights protections that the Obama administration put in specifically to help a vulnerable group of people. Basically, would give employers, healthcare companies, the military, schools, and more the license to discriminate against them. Now, bear in mind, these are people who are already having a really rough time, and that is putting it mildly, especially when it comes to kids in school. A recent survey says 75% of transgender students feel unsafe in class. 65% say they've been verbally abused, and a quarter physically harassed. And their suicide rates are far, far higher than those of other adolescents. The Journal of Pediatrics says more than half of transgender males have attempted to kill themselves, and nearly a third of the girls have tried as well. Now, it's just kids here being cruel to other kids. A 12-year-old named Maddie, who was born a boy but is living as a girl, was bullied by parents in her home state of Oklahoma. A Facebook group that they had set up, the parents called her a maggot, a thing, and far worse than I can say on TV. Her family wound up moving her to Texas after those parents threatened to cause physical harm to her right on school grounds. So what we wanted to do tonight was, in addition to the numbers, try and help put a human face on this situation, because this issue is not only political, but it is as personal as it gets to many of these families. So we have a story to share with you. Jody Patterson, she's a mother of 5. She lives in Brooklyn. She had a girl in 2007 and named her Penelope. But when she was only 3, she said she felt like a boy and wanted to live like a boy. That's when the entire family learned a lot about the issue we're talking about tonight, and also how to try to deal with it. I recently sat down with Jody, and she explained what she and her family have gone through. What prompted you to share what is the most personal of stories and share it with the world?
You know, it does feel very personal at times, and it also feels very political. And primarily I share because Penelope has asked me to, and given me permission, and feels stronger and happier when I do tell his story. And our family is ready to share as well. Oftentimes in the beginning you're not thinking about sharing, you're really thinking about figuring it out and surviving. Mm-hmm. And I'm not in that zone anymore. I mean, our family is thriving. Penelope is an A student, has tons of friends, is a happy kid. And the story that I want to share is about triumph. We've come through to the other side from something that was daunting, unimaginable, and very confusing. And now we are in a place where I have a lot of insight into gender and things that you would never even consider.
When I read and I saw your story, I'd like to think that I am not only progressive, but as a parent also, I just imagined, is there a moment when even if you know with your brain a person is a person, it's who they are, and you can't change that, that you want to not change their sexuality or change their identity, but save them from a harder life than life already is, and say, are you sure? You know, I was amazed at how quickly you embraced this, but even you had some doubts as to how it came to be. Did you do something wrong? Talk about that. because you obviously have a very advanced kid. One of the first words the child said was, "I'm not a baby." So you're not dealing with a typical little kid here. When Penelope had this conversation with you, tell about the conversation and also your initial reactions.
It is something that you can't, I'm going to share the story, but to hear it secondhand is quite different from experiencing it.
Yeah.
And those experiences, those personal moments are what change and make you shift. They shift you. So I never thought about gender, I never questioned it. I thought male and female, 2 options, that's it.
Yep.
And then that was working for my first and second child. It worked for the way I saw the world. And then I had Penelope, who is named after his grandmother. And from very early on, we could see that Penelope was different, angry, perfectly physiologically healthy, and but angry and sad and nervous. Biting his nails early on. And I say he now, but in my mind at the time, I'm thinking my baby girl, but really he. Biting his nails and crying a lot, and beyond the temper tantrum. I have 5 children, so I know the nuances of temper tantrums, and this was something different. Penelope had bad dreams over and over again, recurring dreams, nightmares, and was a bully, had become a bully. So I asked Penelope one day, I just had enough. I pulled him aside for a timeout and myself for a timeout and sat down face to face and said, "What's wrong? Baby, what's wrong? What's really wrong?" And in that moment, which is hard to find, a quiet moment when you're looking your kid in the eye, usually you're telling your kid what to do. I asked. And Penelope said, "Mommy, everyone thinks I'm a girl. And I'm not." And I thought we were talking about presentation. I said, "Oh, it's fine. However you feel is fine." You know, I'm thinking maybe she's thinking tough boy and weak girl, and she wants to be seen as strong. So I said, "However you feel is fine." "No, Mom, I don't feel like a boy. I am a boy." And so I realized we're talking identity. The only thing I thought immediately was, this is beyond what I thought. And you know, I smile now because I'm very proud of Penelope, but in the moment, he's crying and saying how he doesn't want tomorrow to come. "I love you, Mama, but I don't want to be you. And everything is bad. It's horrible. I don't like this, Mama. I don't want this." And in that moment, I thought maybe I had done something to not instill self-pride. Maybe I had forgotten to teach Penelope about who she was and who the women are that came before her. And so I spiraled for a moment into doubt and guilt, because all parents, we see ourselves as the sole leaders of our children. And partially we lead, but a lot of times they're coming with their own thing. This was what Penelope was coming with. And it took me a while to even understand what transgender meant. And I did a lot of that on my own. It's one of those things where you don't feel like the world is with you or even your family is with you. So I was with Penelope for a long time, just the 2 of us. And that, for a family of 5 children, kind of started to tear us apart. And then I had to come back and welcome in the family to the experience, and Penelope had to share it with everyone so that they could understand that this was not mimicking or reacting. This was truly who he is. And over the years, we learned a lot, we experienced a lot, and then I became an advocate. And that's when you stop being scared.
I hope you know how much you're helping people who, there's no book for this, you know, there's no guide. I mean, I can't imagine how much you have to figure out on the fly about this, but it certainly seems this is the healthiest thing for everybody involved, and it took a lot of courage doing what you're doing, and certainly what Penelope's doing as well.
Well, thank you. I mean, I think that the conversation now around gender seems very of the moment. It's not an isolated situation. These aren't special case kids. We're talking the same thing, human rights and the right to be who you are, and we have to support that movement.
Well, Jody, I certainly appreciate the time here, and as you said, this is a subject of the moment. You're very kind to spend some time with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And at the moment of that conversation, it seemed that as a society or as a country, we were becoming more aware of not just how many people this impacted, the staggering stats that I told you before, and we were moving in a direction. We were going to understand, we were going to accept these people, we were going to take it as a societal problem, how many of these kids were being, you know, verbally and physically tortured, how many of these kids were taking their own lives, and we were going to be, as a society. For reasons still to me unknown, the administration for political purposes and nakedly political purposes only, decided that they were going to seek a problem and then find a solution. There were no issues here. To go after kids who clearly aren't what they were, they may have been born a boy or a girl, but they saw themselves as the opposite. To go and make it harder for those kids and their families just because you're trying to play to a base, I don't recognize this America lately. And it's not only cruel, it is the worst kind of political cowardice that I can think of. And it's going to hurt a lot of people. And it's also nothing I think anyone, even in the midterm political season, should in any way strive, let alone gloat over. It is a sad day. All right, when we come back, we will pivot to politics, and we will take a look at those upcoming midterms as Election Day fast approaches. Where's the momentum right now? Will Ted Cruz hold off Beto in Texas? We will discuss that and also look at some local races straight ahead.